You're listening to Speak Up and Stay Alive. I am your hostess, Pat Rulo, and each week we bring you a guest whose voice makes a difference to the world of patient safety and the patient experience. You know that I'm a believer in taking action and always encourage you to take your experiences, both good and bad, and share them in ways that can make a positive difference to someone else. Medical harm or poor healthcare experiences cannot and will not be corrected until people, regular people like you and me, take the time to bring them to light. That's what this radio program is all about. So with that, our guest today is special in that she has seen both sides as a nurse and as a daughter who witnessed her dad's demise during a hospital stay. I interviewed her live at the Beryl Institute's Patient Experience Conference recently. So if you hear talking and clinking glasses in the background, you'll know that we weren't at a wild party somewhere, but rather at a gathering of like-minded people from around the world interested in improving the patient experience. Here we go. Well, I'm sitting here with very funny Sheila. She's one of the sponsors here at the Beryl Institute Patient Experience Conference, and we're just going to have a little chat about who you are, what you do, and what your story perhaps might be.
Well, I'm Sheila Brune. I'm a patient advocate, and I've been a nurse for 43 years. I started a program about 14 years ago now called the Living History Program, and it really came to be because as a care manager, I would have patients that I reviewed their charts and took care of them as their case manager for years. And then they would pass away and I'd read their obituaries. And I was always discovering something in their obituaries that I would say to myself, why didn't I know that about them while they were alive? And sometimes you have that deep remorse and regret that it's something, maybe it was even someone that because of marriage or divorce or whatever, their name had changed and you knew them, but you didn't know you knew them. And then you read their obituary and you go, oh my gosh, one lady in particular, I read her obituary and I thought I knew her extremely well. And I found out that she and I both loved the same college football team. And I thought, gosh, I could have said to her, let me tell you about my favorite game and what was yours? You know, and I always imagined, I think we paint a picture in our head of what we believe someone's about. And I imagined this lady as playing mahjong on Wednesdays at the country club, and she was actually a champion bowler. And I was like, I wish I knew that about her. I wish I could have talked with her about that. I found out that she had a daughter named Sheila, and she never told me that. So just the whole how come we don't have more detailed social information about our patients while we're taking care of them? So I created the Living History Program, which gives us a one-page detailed social history of our patients' lives and really turns them into a person instead of a patient. As a wrap on the story, we always ask them what they love and value most about their life. And we create a beautiful document that we give to them as a gift. And then we use the story as we give care to the patient each and every day. We ask people who are going to touch the patient that they should read the story. We make it non-negotiable. Say if you're going to take care of the patient, you'll read their story and look for ways to connect with them. So that's what the Living History Program is all about.
And it just makes perfect basic sense. I mean, you're having this little mini relationship with this person. You need to know and find out about them. And I also imagine that the people like to share that information. If someone gave me a questionnaire and said, what do you like? Wow, somebody's interested in me and they want to know. And yeah, that's what relationships are all about.
It sends a message to the patient. You really do value them as a person and an individual, and that's what patient-centered care is all about, person-centered care. It's about valuing me as someone different than the person who has the same diagnosis as me, because I'm very different from them, and finding out about me as a person. And when you take the time to sit with someone and say, tell me about your life, you really send a value message to them. So it's just a win-win for everyone. You know, when I was a young nursing student, my one of the sisters said to me at the end of my day, I said, I'm done. And sometimes when we were done with our assignment, we could go study or sleep, depending on the day. And so I said, I'm done with my assignment. And she said, why don't you go sit with your patient and talk with her? And I said, what will I talk about? I'm 19. What will I talk about? And she said, talk to her about her family. And I spent an hour with her, and you know, I still remember her name. I remember her to this day. So that was a very important lesson for me. Now, do you want to hear about my dad? I want to talk to you about Speak Up and Stay Alive, because in the midst of all of this other stuff that happened to me in creating the program, one fine day my father had elective surgery, had a carotid endarterectomy. And you should never die from a carotid endarterectomy. Just should not happen. I had a terrible, painful day of trying to advocate for my father, but yet wanting to not be a pest and to not alienate nurses, because I know that sometimes they retaliate, or at least we fear retaliation as patients and families. So I tried to be very gentle and kind in saying my dad needs to go back to surgery. My dad developed a huge hematoma in his neck, and in spite of my repeated efforts to say he has to go back to surgery, you have to evacuate the hematoma, things are changing, he's changing, he needs a doctor. Over the course of about 4 hours of someone patting me on the head and telling me to go sit in the corner and shut up, he changed tremendously. We couldn't get a physician to come see him. We repeatedly got a physician's assistant. When he finally had difficulty breathing, they got the doctor, who came in and said, yeah, I need to take you back to surgery. And of course I stomped my foot and said, I said that 4 hours ago. Where have you been? Well, I'm here now, and we're going to do it. Before they could ever get the surgery crew in, he occluded his airway, and he died 2 days later. But I did as so many people do when something like that happens. I said, I want to make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. It's all you can do. It is the only thing you can do, is make sure that the organization understands what they did, what they took away from you, and makes the necessary changes to make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. We sat and wrote letters. We asked for a meeting with important people at the hospital, and we sat down with them within a couple of months of Dad's death, and we gave them 30 days to correct what we considered were 23 huge problems in their organization. Things like not having a chain of command policy, or not knowing what to do when you couldn't reach the physician. A physician that signed out repeatedly to his physician's assistant and didn't set up a physician to cover for him. Let her field every call for him. A physician who wouldn't allow nurses to call him, who said, you go through someone else to get to me. And lots of other things, including not being patient-centered and dismissing family concerns, not taking family concerns into account. Truly telling us to sit in the corner that they had everything covered, that they were taking care of things, and we didn't need to bother ourselves about that. Not listening to us when I said, I know my dad better than anybody else on this earth, and when he says this is the worst pain he's ever had in his life and it hurts in his ear, he knows what he's talking about, and you can't dismiss that.
After a medical error, two things need to happen. First, the hospital or the staff needs to approach that family to say, yes, not admit guilt, but just say, we're sorry that this happened, and what can we do to help prevent this from happening again? Because I think that's going to give the family some comfort. And I like what you did, is that you approached them and said, you've got how many days to correct this. That's something positive and proactive. So many people leave and then they're just bitter for the rest of their lives. You're making a difference by putting them on point there and saying, here's what happened. How did they receive that? And did they actually attend to what it was you were saying?
The risk manager called me 5 days after my father's death and said, I just found out about your dad and I'm going to do an investigation. Of course, I was appalled that she had just found out 5 days later. And I said that. I said, it's problematic in your organization that no one called you within the hour after it happened and said, get in here. No one came to us and said, we promised full disclosure. No one came to us and said they were sorry. The only person who said they were sorry was a nurse who clarified it with, you seem like such a nice family. I'm sorry this happened to you. And of course, the sarcastic, hateful me said, I suppose it's okay if it happens to a not nice family. It was like, that's such a weird thing to say. But I was just appalled by that. That was the only apology that we got. And it was very apparent that they knew they did wrong. They cut what I call a wide swath around us. They pulled curtains on us that hadn't been pulled before. They actually swiveled the bed around so it wasn't visible from the hallway. People would walk around us. They wouldn't make eye contact. The nurse manager, when I asked for copies of the chart, said, I can't give them to you till they're authenticated. And I said, you talk to your lawyer and I'll talk to mine and we'll get back together later. And then she thrust them at me 3 hours later and said, here, I hope you're happy. and just hateful behaviors. So, yeah, it doesn't do anything. But I talked to a dozen lawyers after the incident, and after a while I just said, I don't need a lawyer. I need to make sure this doesn't happen again. And when you get the lawyers involved, then you lose that golden opportunity to work directly with the hospital to make change happen.
Absolutely, and I'm proud of you for being able to do that and step away and say, let me make a difference. And what's very interesting at a conference like this, the more people you talk with, the more you find that people have similar experiences, and that's the bulk of the people here have had either an experience with themselves or a family member, and they're about to make a change. Instead of sit and be angry and upset about it, what can we do to make a difference?
It's frightening, though, isn't it? Well, I've probably given a presentation about my dad's case 100 times, and every time I have a line of people that say to me, I wish I had done what you did. It's too late now, but congratulations, thanks for doing that. And bad things happen all the time in healthcare, and we know that. We got to be the change. We do.
And I agree with you 100%. That's what we're all about. I came at it from a really strange patient experience with my mom where she was having a heart attack for 9 hours and went undiagnosed. And no one to this day has ever told me about it, except for a doctor who I didn't know found me the next day in the hallway and said, come in with me, and handed me an envelope and said, this stinks and you need to do something about it. And inside were 4 EKG rhythm strips that showed acute myocardial infarction in progress 4 times during that day. So now I spent the next 4 months knowing what happened, but no one ever came to me and said, this is what happened. You don't have to admit guilt, but say, here's what we're going to do to make it better. Here's a free parking pass. Here's a tuna fish sandwich occasionally. Something just to acknowledge that, I'm now there for the next 4 months. So much needs to happen, and I'm just proud to meet somebody like you who's actually doing something. So one more time, tell our listeners where they can find out more about you and what you do.
My name is Sheila Brune, and my email address is sbrune@ksbhospital.com. I'm going to buy one of your books, and I'm going to take it back and put it on my shelf.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the work you do.
Again, to find out more about Sheila Brune and her Living History program, go to the website, theberylinstitute.org, and it's Beryl, B-E-R-Y-L, theberylinstitute.org, and click the first tab on the left called Resources. That's where you'll find out how to bring the Living History program to your organization. The Living History program brings life to every patient's story. That's theberylinstitute.org.